Okay, so today we're going to discuss on how are we going to work with classes in Flutter. Okay, so in this lesson, what you're going to do is you must have to remember all of those things, all of those theories that you have learned with object-oriented programming. Okay, so I guess you still remember that because that is actually with your Java programming. Okay, so with our previous videos, you can see here I just actually separated the first name and the last name. So the user is going to input everything here, then click on save. And actually, with our previous code, so we have here on the save record, it is actually going to put our data inputted into our map. Then it is going to add into our list, and subsequently it is going to display it on our list view. Okay, so basically we're going to follow same procedure, but at this time, we are going to use an object or classes. So instead that we are going to have the map, we are going to use a class for our student record. Then that class then is going to be added to our list, and so on. Okay, so the very first thing that we are going to do now is to create our class student. So from here, I'm just going to separate my class files. Okay, so inside my library folder, I'm going to create a folder for classes. Okay, then inside my class, I'm going to create student dot dart. Okay, it is here where I'm going to define my student class. Okay, so going back to our browsers, we have here the school ID, first name, last name, and the course. So all of these are actually our properties or the fields that are going to be defined into our student class. So here I'm going to define class student. Okay, so take note of the convention here that the name of our class must start with capital letter. Okay, actually you could also use small letter, but for let us say for best programming practices, we must have to follow a convention for our classes to be starting with a capital letter. Okay, so after we have defined here our class, we're going to define then the properties. First is we have our school ID. Okay, school ID. Then we also have our first name, another string for our last name, and another string for the course. Okay, so after we have defined our properties, the next thing that we're going to do is we have our constructor. Okay, so for our constructor, we are going to have this that school ID, comma, and so on. Okay, so we have now defined our class. So we have here our the properties, and we have here our constructor. So just a review, the purpose of our constructor is this would be the very first method that is going to be executed within our class when we are going to instantiate an object with the class student. Okay, but what I want here, okay, this is new, so I want to have this what we call as name parameter, because when we are going to call, by the way, student, so it must be arranged that the first parameter should be for the school ID, then the first name, the last name, and so on. So if ever that you can interchange this, for example, okay, for example, when we are going to call our student class, okay, for if ever that I'm going to have here the first argument would be the first name. Okay, so what will happen is that this first name, this value here, will be assigned to the school ID. Okay, so there's no problem if ever that you could not interchange your parameters, but the problem is the problem is going to arise if ever you have not arranged your parameters properly. So what are we going to do to solve that is actually we are going to have this what we call as named parameter. So we are just going to enclose our parameters with curly braces. Okay, then we are going to assign, by the way, the parameter school ID can have a value of null because of its type. Okay, because we have assigned a school ID here as a required parameter. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have the command required. Okay, the keyword required. So also here, the last name. Now, just in case that, for example, this dot course is not required. Okay, so what are we going to do is we are going to specify here that course is nullable. So when you say nullable, meaning that is it is possible that the course property has no value. Okay, so I'm just going to have that as an example. So I'm going to have the question mark here. So question mark means course, this variable is nullable. Okay, so as you can see, the error on the course has been removed. Okay, so just an additional, so aside from just defining here our class, I want to create a method. I'm going to say complete name, so I hope you can still remember this. Okay, that is going to return the complete name for this class, for this object. Okay, so I'm going to return this that first name, then comma this that last name. Okay. Okay, try removing this, so we could remove actually this. Now if unnecessary braces. Okay, so if ever we're going to call complete name, so it is going to return first name. No, we're going to have the last name and the first name. Okay, so we have now defined our student class. Okay, so next, going back here, we have our list of map string dynamic. It is because what we did was actually we have assigned those data inputted by the user to a map. Okay, but since we have created here a class, okay, of student, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a list of students. Okay, student list equal to blank, empty list. By the way, we have an error, so isn't a type and so on. Why? It is because we have not yet imported classes slash student dart. Okay, so we must have to import our class so that Flutter could identify this class then as a type. Okay, so we have just initialized here a list of students. Okay, so next, first name. Okay, so next is we have here our save record. Okay, so the purpose of this save record is just to actually put those data into our map, then into our add into our list. Okay, so what are we going to do here is we are going to create here, before I'm going to call save record, I'm going to instantiate first my student. Okay, now so here Okay, student, then student is equal to, okay, so I'm going to call now the student class. Okay, student, then as you can see, as I'm going to have the open parenthesis here, so we have here a list of parameters. Okay, so for the first name, we are going to assign first name controller dot text. Okay, comma, then we have the last name, oops, text, the last name for last name dot text, then we have, okay, we have the school ID, school ID controller dot text, and I'm going to have also my our course controller dot text. Okay, so I have defined actually an object of class of type student. Okay, and as I created or I instantiated here the student class, so we have supplied the values for the parameters first name, last name, school ID, and the course. Okay, so that in our save record, instead that I'm going to send individual variables or individual values here, I'm just going to send my student object. Okay, so first define the student, then we pass our student object into save record. But as you can see, we have here an error. Why? It is because the argument student can be assigned to the parameter of type string. Why? It is because in our save record, we have defined a string parameter here. So what are we going to do? I'm going to change this to a student parameter. Okay, so this student here that we have defined is going to be passed into our parameter student. Okay, then I'm just going to remove the map, remove it also here. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do then is we are going to add this student, okay, into our list. Okay, set state so that when it is added into our students list, so again the students list, that length will change, and that is going to trigger for the rebuild of the list view builder. But before that, we have an error here. Okay, so this is for the sort. So before we have only the name, it is because we have a string. Okay, so now we are going to have, or we are going to sort our list based on the last name. Okay, so okay, so A that we are going to we are going to sort our list according to the last name. Okay, and also B that last name. Okay, so take note here that we are not using the dot notation. It is because we are now dealing here actually with an object. Okay, so later on we are going to have that later on. Then in our list, instead that we are going to have students list index the name, so what are we going to do here is, okay, so I'm going to display, I want to by the way, I want to display the complete name. Okay, so I'm going to have here that complete name. Okay, that's for the title. Then okay, I'm just going to remove this one here. I'm going to remove that, and for my trailing, I'm going to have another text that is going to display students list, then of the current index, that course. Oops, I'm having here an error. Wait. Trailing. Okay, so I'm just going to remove until here. Okay, so going back, we have here our trailing, then a text. It is going to contain the students list index that course. Trailing text. My course is a string. Oh, okay. So we have here, we have defined, by the way, our course as a nullable string. Okay, so that is why here it is said that nullable string can't be assigned to the parameter of type string. Okay, because for a text, the data must be of type string, non-nullable string. So what are we going to do here is we are going to assure Flutter that this course is not null. Okay, so null safety is, we are going to have here the exclamatory, I think it's called exclamatory point. Okay, so we are going to use that as our null safety character, okay, or operator, so that we are going to tell Flutter that course, even though it is defined as a nullable string, but in this case it is not null. Okay, so that's so what I expect here is we are going to list here the complete name. Take note, complete name is coming from our class student, which has a method that returns the combination of the last name and our first name. Okay, then display selected. So this one here is going to display a scaffold, a snack bar. It's just going to display a snack bar for the name. So I'm going to have that complete name. Then for the course, not null. And the last is we have the ID. Okay, try reload. Basically the output would actually be the same, except that we are now using a class. Okay, school ID 1 2 3 4 5, then Pitok. Then we had the course BSIT. So save. So as you can see here, we have now Batolata Pitok. Okay, so let us say 1 2 3 4 6. We have Marco, Guapo. Okay, BSED, save. Okay. By the way, I'm going to have a name in between so that we could see that they are actually being sorted. So let us say the first name would be Karen. Then letter C, Caritas. Save. Okay, so it is arranged. Now, as I'm going to click on any of the names here, oops, actually we have not specified on tap event. Okay, so here on our card, on our list style, by the way, so we must have on tap. Then we are going to call display selected of the current index. Okay, reload. ID 1 2 3 4 5. So save, click. So we have here our snack bar. Okay, so that's the basic usage of our this what they call as our classes. Okay, now so you could see here I created the student, or instantiated the student here through our this what we call as our constructor, okay, that accepts these variables. Okay, now there will be also instances wherein we are going to have, or we are going to instantiate a class, okay, or an object through a map. Okay, for example, from a database we are going to create a map, then out of the map we are going to create or instantiate an object. Okay, so that is why here we could create another constructor. So take note, this is the first constructor. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to create another constructor, student that, but then it should be coming from, I'm just going to call it from map. Okay, and it is going to accept a map of string dynamic. Okay, then I'm going to define here the map. So we have, first is we have the school ID is equal to, by the way, we have, I'm just going to call it a map. Then we have school ID is equal to map, then school ID, comma, first name, okay, we have the last name, the course, that's it. Okay, so what I just did here is actually to create another constructor that instead that we are going to have an individual name parameter, we are going to accept a parameter of a map. Okay, then still the same, I assign each of those map values, okay, into our properties here. Okay, so actually there could be some more when we are going to have JSON, so we could have also another constructor for the JSON. Okay, so I'm going to save this one. Then instead that I'm going to have this one here, I'm going to create a map. Okay, and I'm just going to have student Okay, I'll try this. Okay, so first is we have school ID, first name, and last name. School ID, first name, last name, we have our course. Oh, first I'm going to define map string dynamic. I'm just going to call it studmap. Okay, so after defining here my map, then I'm going to define my student. I'm going to call it student is equal to student that from map, then I'm going to pass my stud map. Save. Okay, I'm still recording. So I hope you got it right. So first we have, instead that we're going to have the individual parameters there, I have created here a map. Then I have instantiated this object, this student, from map. Now, again, it is possible that we are going to use this one in the coming videos, okay? Because there will be some shortcuts that we are going to have, that we're going to use, so that we could create automatically a map from a database. Okay, so that is why I have also introduced to you how to instantiate an object through a map and through a name parameters. Okay, so save, reload. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 Donald Duck BSIT. Click save. So actually the output is the same, but internally our code is now different. The only difference is actually on how did we instantiated our object. Okay, so in the coming videos there would still be other let us say other methods, okay, and procedures on how are we going to work with our lists. Okay, so as of this time, so we have only discussed on how to create a class, okay, then on how are we going to instantiate a class and use them with our list. Okay, so I hope you have understood now the difference between our previous video, in which that is purely maps, and compared with today in this video that we are now using a class which is actually much better compared with just using our maps. Okay, so that's all for today, and I'll see you on the next video.